Okay, so you're thinking about moving to Boulder, Colorado. This video is a great first place for you to start. In today's video, we're going to talk about a whole handful of things that are awesome about living in Boulder, and then a smaller handful of things that are not so great about living in Boulder. And at the end of this video, if you're still thinking that Boulder might be the right place for you, I have a next step suggestion that is going to be really helpful in giving you that next step of clarity to getting closer to being sure of whether or not Boulder is the right place for you. So let's get into it. Okay, so we're going to start with the positive things about moving to Boulder. And we're going to start with the weather. I remember as a kid being so annoyed when adults would always talk about the weather, but it's really true. It makes a huge difference on the way that we feel and how it affects the quality of our life. And Boulder, I'm happy to say, is a pretty great place weather-wise. And again, everything's relative depending from where you're moving, but it's not like the northern part of the United States where we have extreme winters. It's not like the southern part where we have extreme summers. It's pretty temperate all year long. We do have the highs and the lows. We get days of freezing. We get days that are approaching 100 degrees, but overall, it's not that intense. Next, what I personally think is great about Boulder is we have low humidity. So it makes being outside all year long pretty enjoyable and quite doable. Now, I will say in the winter, you're going to have static in your hair and dry skin, but if you can adjust to that, otherwise being outside and being so active, taking advantage of all Boulder has to offer is pretty accessible, I think, due to the low humidity. And tacking on to that is low bug population. So pretty much all summer long, it's really enjoyable being outdoors because you're not endlessly swatting away mosquitoes. Next, also, when it comes to that relative winter weather, in terms of the snow, you might have 1 or 2 days of snow and it's gray, but you just kind of hunker down and get cozy. And then right after that, bam, the sunshine is out in full force. It's gleaming off the snow and it's just so beautiful. So I think you never really get too bogged down by endlessly gray days because it's true. We do have on average about 300 days of sunshine here in Boulder, Colorado, and that makes a very positive difference for a lot of people in terms of their mental health. Now, tacking onto that about the snow and the sunshine, it's just the overall beauty of Boulder, Colorado. So Boulder is smack right up against the foothills. You've got the foothills here, and then you've got Boulder. And so whether you live right up against the foothills, that in itself is beautiful, having those mountain views. But even the further east that you go, the more and more you get this panoramic view of this whole chain of mountains, those foothills that just go on and on for miles. And it is stunning all throughout the year. Also, in terms of beauty, I would say it is the diversity of the neighborhoods that we have here. It's just interesting. There are buildings and homes here that are from the mid to late 1800s, all the way through. A lot of building kind of stopped maybe around the 70s. You still have homes that are updated, but each home is unique. And that also means that we have a lot of mature trees and mature landscaping around here. So it is not a concrete jungle. It's not every fourth house looks the same. It's just pretty and it's interesting to look at. All right, now we're going to get into some of the amenities that Boulder, the city itself, has to offer. And I would say high up on that list is the walkability and bikeability of Boulder. We have miles and miles of paved bike paths that do get plowed after snowstorms. So it's very easy to just go out and keep on going and enjoy that nature. Now, along with those trails in town, just out into the foothills, we have miles and miles of trails as well. And you can take just easy rambling hikes, or you can go up to higher peaks that are still right here in Boulder. So there's just so much ability to get exercise every single day, all year long. The next thing I think is pretty cool about Boulder is we have a river. We have this river that runs through town, and there is a bike path and a walking path that goes right along it. So you can just stroll along the river, hang out with friends. In the summertime, lots of people go in that river, and it's nice because there's lots of little shaded areas and groves where you can just put your feet in the water and hang out during the summertime. Next is our downtown. Our downtown has a whole area that is blocked off from cars. So it's safe for children to run around. There's actually little play areas for children right downtown. And then you have a whole variety of stores and restaurants. And what's also pretty cool about our downtown is all of the original historic buildings, well, most of them are still there. So that adds a whole other layer of charm as well. Next is the restaurant scene. Now, I'm personally am not a foodie, but I have many friends who are, and they say great things about the variety of restaurants that Boulder has to offer. And in addition to our great restaurants, we also have a really popular farmers market that happens throughout much of the year. It happens every Wednesday and every Saturday. And what's really neat is just a couple blocks from downtown. It's connected to the bike paths. It's right next to the river. There's all of these trails. There's grass areas and places to sit. So you can really just make a whole huge event out of it, whether you're doing your shopping and then just hanging out with friends, or also taking advantage of lots of food stalls that are happening there as well. Next is the shopping that Boulder has to offer. Downtown, there are tons of stores that you can shop at, and we also have an outdoor shopping center, which is called the 29th Street Mall. When it comes to live entertainment, Boulder has a lot. We have multiple theaters. We have the Dairy Arts Center, we have the Fox Theater, we have the Boulder Theater, we have Mackey Auditorium, that is a part of CU, and we even have a dinner theater. So there are so many shows and interesting things coming into town on a regular basis that are really fun to take advantage of. And there are also a number of free live performances as well. What's also pretty cool is Boulder downtown in the summer. They have a whole concert series, but there's also regular performances being put on at the library to take advantage of as well. Next, what's pretty cool is that there are a whole bunch of lectures and performances that are regularly coming through town, whether it's at CU, whether it's at the library, or one of the laboratories that we have here. It's just neat because there are so many stimulating and interesting talks. And in fact, Boulder hosts the Conference of World Affairs that has been happening for over 75 years. Lecturers come in from all over the world, and it is free for people to attend. And then finally, being a college town, if you're into college football, we have that as well. Next, I want to talk about some of the amenities that are within a close proximity to Boulder itself. So first, we are close to Denver. You can get to Denver in about half an hour or 45 minutes, depending where you want to go. And Denver is fun. Again, they have an even bigger restaurant scene, but also they have a ton of museums happening in terms of nature, art, science. There's also the Botanic Gardens. There's the zoo. I mean, in terms of opportunities happening for both kids to those who are more interested in the academic side of things, there's just this huge gamut, and it is so close and regularly available to us. Next, there is our proximity to world-class skiing. And there are plenty of people in Boulder who just make a day trip out of it, heading up to Aspen or to Breckenridge, or just making a short trip out of it. It's just amazing because it's not this huge, long, expensive vacation that has to happen just to get to world-class skiing. Also, if you're into skiing, Boulder is very close to a town called Nederland. It's just west of us, and they have a ski resort there as well. So it's pretty amazing you could work half the day and then just run up to Nederland. It's about a 30-40 minute drive from here. And then you can get a whole bunch of ski runs in before the end of the day. And speaking of that proximity, while you could drive just a handful of hours to get way high up into the mountains and take spectacular backpacking trips, Nederland itself also has just incredible hiking and backpacking. Whether you want to go out for days or you just want to make a quick trip with a toddler in the afternoon, you will see these stunning snow-capped peaks. You'll see all these wildflowers in the summer. You're going to see alpine lakes, and it's just exquisite, and it is so easily available to us. Also, I'll say, if you're into mountain biking, tons of trails, very easily accessible. You can just head up to Nederland and go biking to your heart's content. And then finally, in terms of proximity, we are quite close to the Denver International Airport, and that is a major airport. So it's pretty amazing to get to live in this beautiful place and then so easily hit an airport that can take you all over the world. Now we're going to dive into some points about quality of life. So as I mentioned, Boulder is beautiful. It's just a pretty place to live. The next thing that I think is pretty neat about Boulder is that in general, people are pretty laid back. Now, again, this is relative depending from where you are moving, but Boulder in general is pretty polite. People aren't running each other off the road. People aren't grabbing for the last thing at the grocery store. There's a lot of, oh, after you. People want to cross the street. Drivers slow down. So in general, it's a very polite place. Next, I would say that Boulder in general is pretty accepting of those who are living outside of the mainstream. It's generally a pretty live and let live attitude around here. So if you see someone going down the side of the street in a unicycle and a top hat, people aren't going to look twice, or someone might give a thumbs up, but there's just a lot of acceptance for if you don't quite fit in with the norm. Next thing in terms of quality of life is that Boulder has a pretty robust job market. I know there's a lot of people who work remotely these days, but if you are in the fields of education, tech, science, research, there are a lot of job opportunities here, and there are a number of research laboratories here as well. And another reason why that diversity in the job market matters is because it leads to a stronger economy, which then also leads to stronger housing prices. The next thing I'll mention is that in general, Boulder is pretty environmentally conscious. Even with our trash service, every other week, there's a compost pickup that happens here. And the city of Boulder, as well as the county of Boulder, have a number of policies in place that are aimed towards environmental protection. Next, this one could be controversial depending on your own personal values, but Boulder is a pretty liberal place. Like I mentioned before, there's this live and let live attitude, but in general, a lot of people here are pretty focused on liberal policies and upholding the rights and equality of others. Another positive that might personally matter to you is that Boulder caters pretty well to families. There's a very strong school system here. There are lots of public resources here in terms of libraries and parks and places for children to play. I will have an upcoming video that goes way more in depth about that, so check the description box below for when that video becomes available. So I would say that that does a pretty good job of summing up many of the positive aspects about living in Boulder. Next, we're going to get into some of the not so positive aspects of living in Boulder, and first we're going to start with housing prices. Again, everything's relative depending from where you move, but for a lot of people, there is a sticker shock here. Housing prices in general are pretty expensive, whether you are looking to purchase a home or just looking to rent. Now, if you're looking to purchase a home as of January 2025, the median sale price for a single family home was $1.36 million. And the average sale price for a multifamily home, like a condo or a townhome, was $465,000. Now, when it comes to the average cost of rent, if you are looking to rent a one-bedroom apartment here in Boulder, the average rent is $1,800. And say if you're looking to rent an average size home, like a three-bedroom home, that's going to be around $3,800 a month. And in the future, I will have a whole video that dives deep into the cost of living, all the different costs of living that come up when it comes to living in Boulder. And when that video is available, I will put it in the description box below. The next not so positive aspect of living in Boulder is the traffic. Now, again, that is relative. If you're moving from LA or the Bay Area, it's probably going to seem like a breeze here. But from other places, it might not be such a positive experience for you. And I've lived in Boulder for over 15 years, and I have seen traffic get significantly worse. And it's not that it's worse all day long. It's really during those peak morning and afternoon commuting hours. But if you want to get just a few miles in Boulder, it could take you half an hour just to go a few miles in Boulder if you're driving at the wrong time of day. Other times of day, 10, 15 minutes, pretty easy. And if you are going to be a commuter in Boulder, that's where it might really affect your quality of life. And there are two major highways going in and out of Boulder, north and south. And if you are going to be commuting in either direction, either time of the day, it can be bumper to bumper for a while. The next not so positive aspect about living in Boulder is the presence of the homeless population. And it's unfortunate, no human deserves to be homeless, but we definitely have a homeless population here in Boulder, and it has been getting a bit worse throughout the years. Now, it really depends on where you live in Boulder. For the most part, the presence of the homeless population is pretty confined to around the downtown area, usually not right in downtown, but just a few blocks outside of that. And over the years, people have complained more and more about wanting to take advantage of some of the parks and some of the bike trails and not feeling safe to take advantage of that. The next potentially negative thing is the lack of diversity in Boulder. It generally is pretty white and pretty privileged. And there's this saying about the Boulder bubble. And I'll say overall, Boulder people generally are pretty conscientious and they want to do the right thing and they're civically minded. But for some people, they get annoyed because but some people can get annoyed because that privilege can really show up in certain situations. So just something to keep in mind if that's something that matters to you. The next point I want to mention is the air quality in Boulder. A lot of people think, oh, it's Colorado, mountains, it's wonderful, fresh mountain air. And that's not exactly true. And that's because we've got the foothills, and any smog from other parts of Colorado just comes and sits and hangs out in Boulder. And for most people, they never even notice it, save for wiping dirt and grime off the windowsills. But for those who have asthma or other breathing problems, I think it's something worth looking into before you move here, just to understand a little bit more and whether or not that might be a problem for you or a family member. Finally, the last point that is not so positive that I'd like to mention about Boulder is the wind. We have really strong wind here, and it's not all year long. Generally, it's in the shoulder seasons where that cold air and that warm air mix together. But the wind here can be pretty strong and go on for days. And so some people have trouble sleeping. Other people are annoyed that garbage cans and garbage is strewn all around the streets. Sometimes it's known to tear off roof shingles from people's homes. Actually, just last week, my back windshield was broken by a not so large branch that hit it, but it was just going so strong and fast that the windshield shattered. So it's a reality of living in Boulder. Okay, so I think that about does it for the bigger positive aspects of living in Boulder and some of the negatives about living in Boulder. And if after listening to this content, you might still be thinking that Boulder is right for you, there is a next step that I really suggest you take. And this is going to help you a lot to see if your expectations line up with reality. And what I recommend you do is you come to Boulder. And I would say you should be here for at least 2 days. And if your schedule, your weekdays look different from your weekends, I would encourage you to have at least one of those days fall on a weekday. I think it matters to see what your day-to-day life is going to be like and get a feel for what it specifically looks like in Boulder. So for example, if you're a commuter, I really suggest that you get on the roads around those commuting times and see what that's like. Say if you have children, I recommend taking them to the park, maybe walking by the school, go visit the public library. The more that you can just have this felt experience so that when you go back home and you're looking at listings and where you might want to live, you have this felt sense to hold on to. And this will really help you understand if expectations are lining up to reality. Now, I said there was 2 things. So the second thing I think I really encourage you to do while you're here, whether you're looking to purchase a home or you're looking to rent, is to come and look at some of these homes. Boulder is a really expensive place to live, and it's important that you feel clear on whether what Boulder has to offer living-wise is worth it to you, both in terms of the homes and then the location, approximation in terms of what you can walk to and what you can access from where you live. So whether you're looking to rent or looking to own, it really matters to look at a handful of places. If you're looking to rent, there are some larger management companies here in Boulder that you can reach out to. They can show you some homes when you're here. And if you are looking to own, I think you should really reach out to a real estate agent and go see a handful of homes. At a minimum, I think you should look at 3 homes, but 5 would be better. And then you can really get a sense if expectations are meeting reality. And again, when you're back home, just looking at these homes on the internet, you have that felt sense to return to know if this is really going to be worth it to you. And if you would like to find a real estate agent, you are welcome to reach out to me. I'd be happy to show you some homes while you're here. You can head on over to my website. The link to that is in the description box below. But whatever you choose to do, I welcome you if you decide that Boulder is your new future home, and maybe we'll cross paths in the near future. Either way, thank you for your time. I wish you the very best. Bye.